get sold for me. It's great, dude, and it's a crowd favorite. So yeah, that song did worlds for me, man. And then it was so funny. He texted me. The following day after I told him that story. He was like, "Holy crap, dude! I just found this," and it was a work tape of when they were first coming up with it. So it's just so interesting to see. Like, and I know it as a writer myself. And you're just kind of babbling melodies and stringing words that don't make sense together, and just trying to find the song. And then eventually they found it. And
the intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
We're back after a week off. Don't worry, we're not going away. We got a great episode for you this week as we talk to country singer-songwriter Frank Ray. And welcome back Alison Settle for our tasting notes. But before we get into all that, don't forget to check out our neat and mixed reviews on all of our social media at Hops Spirits, all one word. You can find all those reviews also at hopspirits.com, where you can get cool things too, like our happy hour Q&A and so much more. So don't miss those. But like I said, we have a fun conversation this week with country singer Frank Ray. But up next, it's Tasting Notes with Alison Settle as we talk farmers market and booze and how those two can go together since spring is hopefully finally arriving. Enjoy.
Did you know Hops and Spirits is more than just this podcast? Check out hopspirits.com for our latest episode release, past episodes, interviews with interesting folks in the alcohol industry, and so much more. Just go to hopspirits.com. Feel free to wait until this podcast is done.
Back again with us here on Tasting Notes is Alison Settle. She's a 2022 James Beard Best Chef semifinalist, a Sullivan University brand influencer, and you can find her pop-up events around Greater Louisville. Alison, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Well, I appreciate it as always. And last time we were talking about the strange world of my brain and how it comes together, soups and drink pairings.
Yeah.
I think today will be a little more straightforward. And as hopefully the weather is nice wherever you are, and spring weather is upon us. And that means getting out to the farmers market a little bit more, and how you can use that for booze and also just for a fun meal that you can make.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got some things for you. You know, this time of year, like, even though the weather is beautiful and there's flowers and there's green on the trees and everything, you're not getting a whole heck of a lot from farmers quite yet. That's going to come in the fall. But what I know you can get, herbs. They're going to have herbs. You're probably going to see some peas, those early green things. And those are all wonderful ingredients to make syrups for your cocktails, to muddle. A mint julep, of course, Derby's just around the corner, so something to think about. But I really, really enjoy maple syrup as well, and that's something that is pretty typical to be harvested and produced around this time of year. So be thinking about alcohol and cocktails that you would use a simple syrup for, and use different sugar substitutes in place of that. So think of like an old fashioned, and instead of, a simple or just like a regular sugar, you're going to use maple syrup. And that's going to really bring out some of those complex flavors in bourbon. Another thing to think about is pea cocktail.
That sounds interesting.
It sounds a little weird, but bear with me. Okay, so what I think you would like to do, mint and peas always go together really well. So those are two things that you're going to be able to get at the farmer's market these days. Make a simple syrup. It's 50% water, 50% sugar. Chop up some peas. Get some arugula just for some extra pepperiness and for that green color. And you're going to make mint tea, add your sugar, add your water, brew this mint tea with your fresh mint, and then throw that into a blender with your chopped up peas and your arugula, and you'll get this really rich, peppery, herbal, minty, sweet from the pea puree with a beautiful green color, which is just a celebration of this time of year. And then pair it with gin. All the botanicals in gin are going to create this really complex cocktail that's going to be really pleasing to the palate, and something that is pretty unusual and also really pretty. I think it would be perfect for St. Patrick's Day, but we'll have to wait for next year.
Well, I love that because you've also worked in a lot of kitchens where you kind of nothing goes to waste. So whether you're using it in the meal and then kind of using leftover parts in a cocktail, when people are doing something like say that at home, maybe they've gone to the farmer's market and got stuff. How do they kind of work that into their thought process so they can do that at home and not let things go to waste?
Oh, well, a lot of people are going to throw away, like, say you did get English peas from the farmer's market. A lot of people are going to shell those peas and throw the shells away. Don't do that. Use those shells to make a vegetable stock. And then when you make your soup or you're going to make a risotto, maybe a vegetarian risotto, you can use that stock that you've made that's infused with green pea flavors, and then you're using everything. You know, if you're buying English peas by the pound, you're paying for those shells, so you should use them.
And then I guess my last thing I always like to ask this is maybe a fun meal to create around this time of year, with whether you're able to get some stuff at the farmer's market or maybe have to go a little farther away to the store.
I really am. I know I keep going back to peas, but I just really love this time of year when you're going to get those really fresh, plump ingredients. And like I said, a risotto is a really perfect celebration of that. So get your chicken broth, put your English pea shells in there and infuse that flavor and really bring out the pea flavor out of those shells and utilize them. And then you're going to have your arborio rice, and then you're going to saute that with shallots and garlic. And if you can get your hands on some ramps or leeks or spring onions or scallions at the farmer's market, put those in there as well. And then you're going to create your risotto with your stock as normal. Add some butter, because butter is just a dream with peas. Parmesan cheese, and then add these plump, beautiful peas. You don't even have to blanch them. Like, the heat of the risotto is going to cook them a little bit. And then you have this incredible vegetarian, pretty healthy, honestly, beautiful celebration of spring.
I love that. Just in time to hit the farmer's market and make me hungry once again. Alison, I appreciate it as always.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our conversation, he's a country artist, songwriter. His latest EP, Get You Some, is available now. Please welcome in Frank Ray.
What's up, man? How you guys doing? What's everyone doing out there?
Good. I'm good. I always want to say Frankie Ray for some reason. Do you get that a lot?
I do get that a ton. My manager hates it, but I grew up with my cousins and peers, and everyone called me Frankie. So it kind of it's nothing that bothers me. But yeah, it grinds the gears of my manager, Oscar. He's like, I guess it doesn't make me sound like a real man anymore. Yeah.
Well, I get it. Some people be like, do you answer to John? Yes, I do. I prefer Jonathan, but, there's worse names I can be called than John.
Yeah, that's right, man. But guys, but of course, if you saw me in person, people saw me in person and saw, that I'm like 5'7". They might not even call me a real man anyway.
Aw, I can't believe that. Now I gotta ask, since this is bar conversations, I'm drinking a little bourbon. Got my little bottle here of Jeptha Creed, a little red, white, and blue bourbon.
Nice.
That's 3 different types of corn in it. What are you drinking tonight, or what's your go-to?
My go-to is tequila, man. It's always tequila. I prefer Cantera Negra, which is a tequila company we started working with. They're a little lesser known. They're not super mainstream, but really great tequila. And they have a couple of different kinds, like añejo, extra añejo is probably my favorite. But I, believe it or not, ran out, and I'm waiting on another ship from them. And so they'd probably kill me for saying this, but right now I'm drinking a little Patron. This is a reposado, and it's good, man. The Repo Patron it's a lot smoother than most reposados, you know what I mean? Like, if you went with like a Casamigos, that's actually a sweeter reposado. There's some reposados out there just really bitter. I think the Patron one is actually really, really smooth, and I enjoy it. And I usually sip it over ice, kind of mellows it out a little bit, and yeah, it's delicious.
Well, I was gonna say I was never like my wife's the tequila drinker in the family. She's always enjoyed a tequila. I've never been that until recently,
Yeah.
and I realized that reposados and añejos. When I can say añejo, there's a couple videos of me not being able to say that when I was doing a review. That was fun. I blamed it on my accent. But man, I had a Thomas Rhett's a Dos Primos añejo, aged a year in bourbon barrels. That's one of the smoothest things I had ever drank, and I'm like, maybe there is something to this reposado and these añejos.
The thing is too is that most smooth tequilas like that, most tequilas worth drinking are aged in oak barrels. And that's sort of the thing, right? That most people don't understand about tequila. They think tequila, and if tequila is making you wince after you take it, you go, that's not good tequila. It's really not. You should be able to drink it smooth, like as you would a bourbon, and enjoy it nice and mellow and get all the flavors. And it's just, that's the thing. So there's a huge misconception. People think tequila, you're drinking that well shit from the bar, and it's not good for you, man. Stop doing that. You're killing yourself.
I was going to say, I dabbled in a few because I'd been sent a few doing this show and some of the other things that I've done. And I'm like, those have been sitting there for a while. What have I been missing? And like you said, it's a totally different drink. Now, I've seen you perform. I saw you with LV here in Lexington, Kentucky. And I saw you there. I've seen the pictures. You always seem to have a red cup with you on stage.
Yeah.
Is tequila and that, or are you doing something a little different?
Man, it really just depends. At that particular moment with LV, it was probably Bullet rye whiskey, because that was what was on his rider. And so we'd go into his green room and just check it. It was really fun. Yeah, that's what I really enjoyed that. There was times where at some point they were just like, "What are you doing in our green room?" I was like, "Have you seen our green room? It's a closet because we're the opener, and we don't have any booze in there. All we had was Miller Lite." And so when it comes to beer, that's sort of the beer of my choice. But yeah, man, we so probably Bullet rye whiskey, and ever since then, it's become a part of our rider as well. So because we get tequila again, Cantera Negra hooks us up. But if we do want to mix it up and want to have something different, we'll have some Bullet, rye back there, or whatever kind of Bullet they got. But yeah, that's probably what it was, because it was LV stuff.
I like that. Well, I mean, the Kentucky boy should know what he's getting and putting in a rider for something like that, I would hope.
Exactly. Has he been on the show?
He has not, but here's a small world thing. So LV knows my brother-in-law really well. He goes down to Texas and visits him, and we'll go out on some of the hunts with him down on the ranch that he kind of coordinates and stuff like that.
That's cool, man. Yeah, LV's awesome, man. I miss him. It's been a while since we've actually got to hang out, because I've been so busy and he's working on some new stuff, and it's just been crazy, man. But he's a real one, that guy, man. He's a real one.
Now, you're busy. I know you got a 2-month-old and a 6-year-old. I mean, what, are they keeping you busy somehow, some way?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know what it is about a newborn baby that'll do it. But as soon as if I figure it out, I'll let you know. Yeah, it's been wild, man. My wife and I, that we were surprised by that one. And I got 3 girls at this point. My oldest, however, is 19. She's in college. I got started pretty young, so. I like to tell people, as soon as I figured out what to do with it, I was like, "Woo, let's do that, let's get that." And just like that, a baby. And I was like, "All right, cool." Well, it was great. That was a blessing, because it taught me how to grow up quick and take care, of her and get some responsibility. And then, I had to become a man real quick. But then, of course, I met the love of my life, my wife Emily, and we had our daughter. This is my cat Fred, just jumped up here. Sorry if he makes an appearance. Funny. What's up, buddy? But Mackenzie is our 6-year-old, and when she hit 6 years old, we're like, okay, we're good. Like, clearly another baby is not going to happen. The age gap is way too big. We should be all right. And then lo and behold, man, my wife was waiting for me on the back porch when I got home from a grocery run one day, and surprised, and I said, "Oh God, we got to start all over again." But now, I mean, the minute she's here, you know how it is, man. Your whole world just changes. And I looked at this girl, and I had no idea that I felt like I was missing something. But the minute I held her, I was like, yeah, this is what I was missing. Now I feel complete. Now I feel great. And Mackenzie, God bless, thinking that age gap was way too much. It's perfect. She's self-sufficient. She will get up. She'll make her own breakfast if she needs to do that, and she'll turn on the TV and do her whole thing. And she helps out a ton, man. Like, she's like, hey, can I feed her? Can I hold her? Can I change her diaper? I'm like, absolutely. Do all of that. Please. So it's great, man. I'm tired. My wife's tired, but honestly, we got pretty lucky.
I was gonna say, I've joked with a few other guys, and I'm like, but y'all's lifestyle kind of works for these crazy hours when the baby wants to get up at 2 a.m. You're used to being up sometimes at 2 a.m. Traveling and doing shows.
Yeah, dude, you're right. You are right. I mean, it is easier to get up and do these things. Now, there is a difference. Sorry, hold on. I guess. Oh, come on. It's my bass player staying with me tonight. Like, he can say hi to Mario. Hey, Mario.
Hey, what's going on?
We're doing. My bass player. This is my band has sort of become my house has sort of become the band house, as the band is traveling through. A number of them live here in Nashville, but we all are based out of the Southwest originally. So I'm from New Mexico, and the guys I met in El Paso, Texas, and so Mario and our piano player Israel, they still live in El Paso, and so when they're driving through, we got a gig in Alabama Thursday. And they'll rack out here at the house, man. We got a guest bedroom upstairs, and it's a whole thing. So anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, man, what I was saying is, like, it does work. Like, I'm used to getting up and this and that. But my wife, I mean, she's a saint, and she spoils me anyway. Like, I'll be right next to her, and she'll be up with the baby all night, and I get up and be like, hey, what do you need? What do you need? She's like, no, sleep, you're good. But I know what she's really thinking. She's thinking, you're an asshole, Frank, and I never want to talk to you.
I don't believe that for 1 second. Now you mentioned growing up in New Mexico. I know you grew up in Texas too. What impact did that have on your music that you grew up around or listened to when you were younger?
Oh man, it's the reason why I'm the person I am today. And people talk about the Latin influence in country music, or at least in my music, and it stems directly from where I grew up, right? So it's a product of my raising. My parents, they split when I was young, man, probably like 4 years old or something like that. So I've always hopped between Texas and New Mexico. And my mom moved to San Antonio, Texas, actually Laredo, Texas, and we lived there for a little bit, but eventually hung our hat in San Antonio. But every summer I would go down to New Mexico and hang with my dad. And so I kind of got the best of both worlds. And I got this weird accent. It's kind of Mexican. It's kind of twangy. There's a little bit of everything. It's so weird. People don't know what to make of it. But anyway, that's country music is where I fell in love with country music in San Antonio, right? Listening to the country radio stations down there, Y100. And it was, or KG97 is another one. But it was always tuned to either one of those two radio dials. And then when I'd go to New Mexico, I mean, we were literally the town that my dad still lives in, my family lives in, is called Columbus, New Mexico. And it's 3 miles north of the Mexican border, much like El Paso would be to Juarez. But there's a small town just to the south of that in Mexico, Paloma, Chihuahua. And I guess I reference it because it's not only was it a big part of my culture, and I had family that lived over there, so we'd go and visit, but also it's probably the reason why I fell in love with tequila early on in my life. And so it was just this, it had this huge impact on who I was. I listened to mariachi music, to rancheras. I mean, that's just a way of life over there. It's a normal thing, right? It's not something you just turn up for. Like, I want to listen to Mexican music today, or I want to go eat Mexican food today. I mean, it was just part of your life every single day. Rice and beans, as stereotypical as it might sound. I mean, rice and beans and tortillas and chile con carne and huevos rancheros and all that stuff, man. It's just a part of my life, and I'm grateful for it now, because doing that stuff here in country music today, there's an authenticity to it. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm really grateful for for having grown up over there.
And I was going to say, obviously, you're around music from an early age. When did you get into wanting to play music, or when did that kind of become part of your life?
Oh man, I've been singing and trying to write most of my life, singing for as long as I can remember. I can't even remember, like when it clicked that I could carry a tune, but the most recent memory I have is probably in the third grade, right? I was in San Antonio. No, I was in Laredo. I was in the third grade, and I was a part of I went to go join this, they make you do choir and stuff like that, right? And I went to that class. They just make you do music as a part of your curriculum. And I remember I sang this one little bit of a song, and I got everyone's attention. And there was this one girl that I had a huge crush on at that point in third grade. I mean, look at me, Frank. It's no wonder I had kids earlier. But yeah, I remember her name was Bianca. I don't remember her last name, but I remember her name was Bianca. And I had a crush on her. And the way she looked at me when I started singing was like, dude, game over. This is what I need to do, right? This is like, I got my crush and this and that. And so I just started singing that. And then I've always been sort of musically inclined, but I think that was always a big motivating factor, which is crazy now that my singing had nothing to do with me getting my wife, which is weird. That's totally weird.
Well, that's usually how it works, right? Right? They're like, forget that guy.
I fell in love with her because she wanted nothing to do with me.
Hard to get. See, I still can't carry a tune, so I don't know what that's like. We're hopeful for my daughter. We've put her in music classes, dance classes, things like that, and hoping she does a little better than my wife and I.
It's just one of those things. Like my daughter Mackenzie, Chloe can sing a little bit, but she never really had a passion for it. Mackenzie she's musically inclined. She's in piano right now. She can carry a good rhythm and melody and all that stuff, but again, man, you just really never know. She's still a little bashful, and I think there's a difference there. I was never bashful. If somebody told me to sing, let's go, baby. There's a huge difference in that. So the fact that she shows some hesitation with that, I don't know that she'll ever want to do it professionally. And quite frankly, now that I'm in the industry, I don't know that I want her to do it professionally.
It's not the easiest career for sure, and for you, your career path kind of took a different road. You know, you might have wanted to go music route, but you ended up going into being a police officer for a decade.
Yeah, man, I kind of fell into that. I was working a lot of odd jobs. I tried going to college for a little bit. It took me all of one semester to realize I didn't want to do that. Let's see, I slung cell phones for a little bit at Cricket Wireless. I worked as a busboy at Chili's and a retail guy over in the mall at Anchor Blue. American Eagle was another one. Man, I did everything. I built corrals with my dad during the summer. And it just got to the point where I found myself working at the Luna County Detention Center in Deming, New Mexico. And I did that for about 10 months and realized really quickly that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And so I had made enough friends on the other side that were bringing inmates in, and they kept kind of encouraging me to go and give it a shot. And man, I just happened to find myself in Las Cruces one day and came across a police officer and asked him about it. And he just happened to be hosting a job fair and gave me an application, and I applied, and I blinked, and 10 years went by. I was a police officer for 10 years, and it's nuts.
Well, and I guess it was during that time, though, you found music being an outlet for what is definitely a stressful job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. It's interesting, though, how much I put it on the back burner. I sang the national anthem for my police academy graduation. I did that, and I did that a couple more times for like little police events that we were having. But for the most part, the first like 5 years of my career were focused solely on law enforcement. Right? It was just I was learning the ropes, and it consumes your entire life. That I was just trying to figure out how to be a good cop. And it wasn't until I finally felt like, okay, I got a handle on this. Um, that I really started exploring healthy outlets again, and then I just naturally found my way back to music. But up until that point, I had failed bands. Like I had a failed punk rock band. It was terrible, and um, that
What was the name of the band?
the name of the band was Cadence. It was bad. It was so bad. We were so bad. But I mean, whatever, man. At the time, it was just like it was fun, right? It was fun, but again, I just had to take my career seriously. And anyway, it gets to the point where, again, I'm ready to get back into music, and I knew that I always wanted to play country music, and so I just started to kind of piddle around the guitar again. I taught myself a few chords. The first song I learned how to play was "Blame It On My Roots." I showed up in boots to friends in low places. Because I figured, well, if I'm going to do this, I better learn that song because most people are going to want to sing that song. But anyway, started piddling around, and once I figured out how to get around the chords enough, started writing some pretty mediocre songs. Some of them were pretty shitty, actually. But at that time, I thought they were good enough for me to strike up a country band. So I called up a cousin of mine and asked him if he wanted to play bass, and we found a couple other buddies. One guy that I had graduated high school a couple years before me, but he wasn't really doing anything. He was more of a metalhead, but he's a great guitar player and he can shred like crazy. So I was like, you want to join a band? And then had a drummer, Sam Campos, and we kind of just got the whole thing going, man. And before you know it, we came up with a band name called Border Avenue, and we were doing the damn thing, and it was just crazy. It was crazy the way it all kind of went on. And I know this is a pretty long-winded answer, but this is pretty much how everything developed. I was doing that to kind of blow off some steam from work, and then I found ourselves playing every weekend, and now it wasn't just blowing off steam. Now it was becoming more of a pretty serious hobby. And then we won an opportunity to open up for Keith Urban as he rolled through Las Cruces, and that was when it really that was a real defining moment for me, because I was like, okay, I shouldn't be a cop. This is what I need to be doing. It was the first time I'd ever tasted that kind of tour production and that kind of lighting and sound and that kind of set up. The green room, I was like, what the hell's a green room? That's awesome. Like it was great, man, and it just kind of took me from there, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then lo and behold, the other guys didn't want to pack up and move to Nashville with me. They just thought, oh, we should stick around here. We got the Keith Urban thing, and we can pretty much hang our hat on that, and that's gonna be our little claim to fame. And I was like, it's not good enough for me, man. I gotta go to Nashville, or I gotta do something. I gotta do this full time. I gotta quit my job. And they thought I was crazy for thinking that.
Well, I was gonna say it ended up working out pretty well for you in the end, because I was gonna say, I mean, really, as you're explaining it, you basically had two full-time jobs. I mean, being a cop, I mean, yeah, you can do that a couple days a week because you can work long shifts and so forth. But then on the weekends, you're doing you got gigs, 3-4 nights, and you're rehearsing and things like that. I mean, that's a lot to balance.
But like, get this: when the guys pretty much said that they were not wanting to move to Nashville, I started kind of playing around town by myself, doing these little guitar pulls, like little writers things, little acoustic things. And I did that in El Paso a couple of times, and found my manager, Oscar Chavita, and he's just a bulldog of an entrepreneur. Like, the guy is so ambitious and so driven, and out of nowhere, he decided he was going to leave the real estate business and get into music like that. he's just that guy. He's like, well, I like drinking beer and I like listening to live music. I think I'm just going to do that. And that's what he did, man. And he found me by performing with some of these writers rounds, and he was just like, dude, I think you got something special. Like, let's do something together. And that's when I teamed up with Oscar is when it really started to connect, that this is a big deal. Like, we can make this a big thing. This guy has taken every business that he's ever owned and taken it to the pinnacle of where it's supposed to be. And I was like, if he has that much confidence in me, like I think we could do the same thing. It's certainly what I wanted to do with my life, so why not? And so that's when I really got serious. And he got me on Texas country radio. We were kind of doing the rounds there, and I started hitting the road, going to play all these little clubs in Texas, and visiting these radio stations and making the rounds. And holy smokes, man, that's when the demand really started to kind of kick in. And now I'm far east Texas, and I got to beat a briefing in Las Cruces, New Mexico at 6:30 on Sunday morning. That's just not going to work. I was calling in too much, man. I was just like, I can't do this. I have to make a choice. And if you could believe it, I was actually going to choose law enforcement because at the time, Mackenzie was only 3 months old, and Emily was like, we were dependent on my steady paycheck, and then we were dependent on my insurance, the city benefits, and all that stuff. And but she was the one. My wife was the one that was just like, "No, man, this is what you really want to do. Like, I know you don't. Your life's passion isn't being a cop. Like, go give this a shot." And so, with her blessing and Oscar's business savvy and my family's support, I was like, "Deuces, I'm gonna go try this." And here we are.
Well, and I love the fact that, like, I think neither you nor Oscar really knew what to expect when you hit Nashville, right? Like, because that's a whole different ball game, and it's but you worked at it and you knocked on doors and you got in front of the right people, and then
when I describe Oscar as a bulldog, I mean that's pretty much it, man. Like the guy does not understand the word no, he and will always look for another route, another avenue of how to approach whatever it is we were trying to get, whether we were just trying to get in the door at Sony or Warner or Broken Bow or whatever. He just always found a way to make it happen or get in touch with somebody who knew that can make it happen. It was crazy, man. And we just sort of found our way here. I remember very distinctly, actually. We found a producer. I was playing a gig in Alabama, right? A guy named Patrick McCarty was down there, and he really was impressed with my sound and the band. And he's like, man, he talked to Oscar. He's like, I think your boy's got something special here. I don't have a whole lot of connects in Nashville, but I do know a guy who was pretty prominent back in the day. His name's Steve Dorff. They said, he wrote "I Cross My Heart" for George Strait. He's done a bunch of stuff for Kenny Rogers, and he even recorded with Whitney Houston, done a bunch of stuff with Barbra Streisand. I mean, the guy was huge. Like, give him a call. Here's his number. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I think your guy's great. And Oscar was that kind of guy that he took that phone number, and the next day he called. He had no idea who he was talking to. He was just like, "Hey, Steve, this is Oscar Chavita. I manage this guy, Frank Ray, and I think he's great, and I want to see what we can do for us." He's like, "Well, I can produce some stuff, and send me over some material, and I'll let you know what I think." And he got back to us a few days later and said, "Yeah, your guy can sing, man. My son Andrew recently passed. Andrew Dorff was a big songwriter here in Nashville, and he had recently passed. It was probably about a year and a half after at the time of that phone call, maybe 2 years. But Steve was looking to keep his legacy alive, and had Andrew's catalog of songs, and so he was flipping through some songs for me and sent a couple over. One of the songs that we came across is a song called "Tequila Mockingbird," and fell in love with that song. I thought it was awesome. And while we were recording it, I remember Oscar, as he was writing the check to pay Steve, was just like, "There's a lot of money," but he goes, "This is an investment. I feel like if we can get anything out of this, it paid for itself at that point." And wouldn't you know it, that song was not only written by Andrew Dorff, but also Trevor Rosen of Old Dominion, right? And that comes into play later on. But we record that song. Some publicists that were working with Steve at the time came into the studio to get him to sign some books that he was working on, that he had written, called "I Wrote That One Too." And I was in the booth singing, and they heard, and they were like, "Who's this guy? What's his story? Like, this is great." Tell him he's a cop, he's Hispanic, like he moved to Nashville, like the whole thing. Or he hadn't moved to Nashville, but he's here in Nashville writing and doing the whole thing. they're like, we love his story. We want to work with him. So we started talking to these ladies, Kate and Lynn of the Richland group, and they were incredible. They happened to be working with Spotify, was one of their clients, and they set up a meeting with John Marks, who was the guy over there at the time, head of the country, music director and all that. And he listened to me kind of speak, and he listened to Tequila Mockingbird, and he said he wanted to help out, and he put that song on New Boots playlist on Spotify, and then that song came across the desk, or came across the VP of A&R over at Broken Bow. Her name was Sarah Canavy, and the way she describes it was the song Tequila Mockingbird came across, and she was like, I don't know this song, I don't know this artist. Usually we know every artist that's coming out on this playlist because we're in the industry, we know what's going on, we know who's being fed through the machine. What the hell is this guy's story? She looks me up. Cole calls Oscar. Oscar calls me. He said, have you ever heard of Broken Bow? And I said, holy shit. Yeah. And they said, well, they want to meet in Nashville. And here we go, man. So again, this all started from a guy in Alabama named Patrick, who's a dear friend of ours to this day. But he knew Steve. The Richland girls knew Steve, and we got in touch with them. They knew John Marks. We got in touch with John Marks, and then that song comes across New Boots, and we get a record deal out of it a year and a half later, something like that. It's been a crazy journey, man. I know that's a long-winded answer, but that's in a nutshell, like the sequence of events that happened that got me here.
I was going to say, I mean, truthfully, I mean, this is kind of what you expect at the bar. You're like, that's not a true story, but it is. And when you look back at that journey, I mean, to where you are now, how you kind of got here, where you were even before all that, I mean, is it wild to take that step back and look at it?
Yeah, man. It's crazy because it does sound like a completely fabricated story. It sounds like it. Yeah, where's the biopic that they're gonna make with this shit happening, dude? Because that is crazy. But to tell you the truth, we are doing the same damn thing we did. We're just Oscar and I rolling in a Chevy Malibu through all of Texas. We're doing the same thing that we were doing then, just on a grander scale. That's it, man. But to Oscar's credit, I mean, as I saw him, I remember very distinctly, he was writing that check out to Steve to pay for the production. And he's like, man, if we get anything out of this, just one thing, it would have paid for itself. And, I'm not afraid to admit that's the reason why I got the record deal in the first place, or at least got on the radar for Nashville. And not to say that it secured the record deal, but that's why I got on their radar. I would have never gotten a phone call from Broken Bow Records had it not been for that song, and had it not been for Steve, and had it not been for Patrick, and had it not been for Alabama, and had it not been for Oscar, and had it not been for quitting my job. It's just crazy.
Well, and since then, you've put out an EP, Get You Some. What was it like kind of being able to produce something like that and work on a project like that?
That was incredible, man, because at the same time I started working with Broken Bow, I was also working with Spirit Music Nashville and Fluid Music Revolution. Specifically Fluid was headed by Frank Rogers, and Frank Rogers, if you don't know who he is, he's a huge songwriter, huge producer out in Nashville. He's been in the game for a very long time, very well respected in the industry, and he's a hit songwriter, an incredible producer, and a great friend, man. And he is the one that kind of took me under his wing when it came to songwriting. He listened to some of my material, and he's like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's good. You got some potential, and he's truthful, just honest. And I was a cop for 10 years, so you have to do a whole lot more than that to hurt my feelings, right? But I was like, okay, well, dude, teach me. I want to know. And he's just like, why don't you come and meet with some of my guys and some of my female writers, some of my male writers, just some of our writers in general. Let's see what works. Let's see what works and see who you click with. And really just kind of took me under his wing, and it was a process figuring stuff out. But finally found a group of guys that I really had some great chemistry with, and really wrote a lot of great songs with, and I got the label deal. Frank also offered me a publishing deal and for songwriting, so it kind of came within a week of each other. if not a couple of days. And after that, Frank said, "Hey, pick 5 of your favorite guys, and let's set up a writers retreat, and let's go out there and see what you guys can get." And we did that, and that's when we started to formulate what Frank Ray was going to sound like, right? Like, it was great because these guys knew who I was. Like, I was finding my own voice. Like, at that point, it was just like, we know what sounds authentic to me, and we know what doesn't. So all the songs that we started to write, that just, we knew weren't in the lane of what I was trying to say or what I was trying to sound like. We didn't even bother writing it. We just went and we dug deep and found some great songs and crafted an album. And out of the album, we chose 6 songs to serve as the EP that would provide the best snapshot of what you can expect from the album. So from Get You Some, which is just not only a phrase that I say, but it's also kind of very literally speaking, just get you some of what is coming, right? We have songs like Out on Me, which is a big kind of like funky tempo, almost like a funky dance number, right? And they have Country Look Good on You, which is more of a R&B kind of pop soul hooks. Streetlights has got a Latin flair to it. Y'all Showed Up is that party vibe that, you know, everyone's been looking for. And Late, of course, is that family-oriented love ballad that country music is known for. I mean, you get all these songs together, and that's what you can expect from the full album that's coming hopefully later on this year. But it was awesome, man. Crafting that body of work has been my proudest moment, you know, in the music industry, in my career in music so far.
Well, and you touched on it too, because I feel like this is hard for folks, especially when they're breaking in, or you're kind of getting your feet established and everything like that, is finding your voice. You know what I mean? Like finding what is true to you. When you finally found that and found the right folks that understood that, like, how
dude, it was like
is
breaking
that?
the code, man. It's like, you know, in the Matrix, when you see all the numbers and stuff, like all that, like that's what it felt like. You're like, that's it, dude. Like it's almost staring you right in the face, like it's staring you right in the face until there's all this other noise that's in the way. When it comes that clearly, it's like, oh, crap, there it was, you know? And that's sort of what it felt like, specifically to the Latin aspect of things, right? I had written a bunch of stuff that was down the avenue of almost hokey, where it's just like, it's almost like, what do the white writers in the room think Mexican music sounds like, right? And it's just, I mean, just calling it like it is, and that's pretty much what it was. It was just like, you think of Toes, right? Zach Brown, like, you think of that, like, I got toes in the water, ash and sand, and like that, like adios and vaya con Dios, right? It's basically just, you know, you God be with you, see you, and God be with you. But yeah, it's just like that, like señoritas no quiero when there's no dinero. I got no, you know, like all that stuff is what they were trying to get me to do. And granted, not to their, you know, no fault of their own. That's just what a lot of the people that I got in the room with felt like. Hey, this is Mexican music. We got to say this, right? How do you say Dos Equis in Spanish? That's what Dos Equis, right? Bucket of beer in Spanish. It's like cubeta. It's just weird. It was a weird dynamic, and you know, I kid you not, one time I think I said enchilada in the song, and it was it just wasn't authentic. It wasn't real. It was very hokey, and I was like, this isn't right. And finally, I was writing with Frank and another guy named Bobby Hamrick, Frank Rogers, I should say, and Bobby Hamrick, and I spoke up, and I said, none of this feels right when it comes to the Latin vibe. And they said, okay, well, what do you want to write? I said, you got to think in the world of Despacito. You got to think of that kind of thing. Like Spanish music is almost like, yes, it can be. It follows the same themes as country music, but it's almost this language of love, right? Spanish music is known for that, right? And so I said, you got to think of that, sexy vibes. And we started strumming a little groove, and we found it, man. I said, this is right. And again, I can tell you, the Matrix, and just like, that's it. And so that's where Streetlights was born. And ever since then, I felt like Streetlights was the blueprint for everything Latin based that we wanted to write from there on out. And I knew it. So anytime we started going down the Mexican restaurant kind of vibe, I was like, that ain't right, son. No,
No more Taco Bell. No more
you gotta
Taco
think
Bell.
streetlights. Here's the blueprint of what we need to do. Let's do that.
Well, and you had a huge hit, come out off of Get You Some, and what was it like to see country look good on you, kind of just take off and kind of have a real life on the charts and radio
It was
play and
everything,
things
man.
like that?
It was incredible. It was amazing, and it was frightening as all hell. I was like, because there was so much momentum and so much excitement behind it. And I wasn't a writer on that song. That song was pitched to me, and I fell in love with it, and I felt like it was right in my alley. So I recorded it. And some of the songwriters on there just happened to be really good friends of mine. So it was kind of like, man, I hope I'm successful for these guys because, they wrote a great song, and, just all these things. But, any artist will tell you, you see the country charts every week in, week out. It's a stressful roller coaster. And I made it a point just not to look at it anymore. But even doing that, people would tell you every week, people that are watching the charts, and hey, congrats, or if you didn't hear from anybody that week, it's because you were down that week or you didn't move or anything like that. If you did, like, hey, you went up 2 spots, and it's so stressful, man. But when it started kind of breaking into that, top 40, and then it stopped going, now you're on the country countdown, and it starts going in the top 30. You're like, holy smokes, man, it's got some legs, it's ready. And then you're in the top 20. You're like, okay, there's no way it's gonna go. And of course, it peaked out at number 16, I think, which was huge as a debut record. But as a number of things, it's a whirlwind of emotions, because the kind of momentum that it had and the excitement that people had initially, you start thinking, like, what if this thing goes number 1? What if it goes top 10? Like, what if it does this? And so that's the frightening part of it all. It's very easy to get excited, and so now. We got our second single out on country radio, and we had a great first week of ads, and it was like the number 1 most added for the week, and it's pretty exciting, and everyone's excited again. Same thing, and I see the same thing happening at Happy Country Look Good on You, right? The pom-poms come out, we're like, woo, 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 and I'm like, I'm keeping my feet as close to the ground as possible, and I'm just much more careful about getting excited when a song hits country radio. But Country Look Good on You was a great introductory song for me. A lot of people know it. They sing it to me at shows, and it was great to get to experience that. And I'm just fortunate enough that my label and my team have worked really, really hard to get another song out there. So we're going to take another crack at it and see what happens.
Well, and clearly, you got more new music coming this way. Get You Some's just a taste. I love that. Now that I know what that title is, I'm like, that's genius. That's just genius. I'm a PR guy. I'm like, that's just smart. That's just clever. That's just damn clever. So what can folks expect with some new music, and what's the hope?
Well, the
behind
hope
that?
is, first off, we're focusing on Somebody Else's Whiskey, which is the new single that's out. It's available now. People can stream it. It just hit country radio yesterday. Is it yesterday? Monday? It just hit country radio. And
hey, I had that earlier today.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, the other day. Oh, that was yesterday. That's yesterday.
radio, man. Like I said, it had a great week. So that's our primary focus right now, is just really putting a lot of effort behind that. Filming content and maybe some videos or something like that, some visualizer. I'm not sure, but hopefully not long after that. Maybe sometime in the summer, we'll be able to drop the full album. Are you getting yourself another little snort? That's what I'm gonna do here. There we go. Cheers, amigo. Let's do a little cheers, man. Salud. Clink. But anyway, hopefully I'm hoping summertime we'll get to drop the full album, and I can't even. I get so excited and passionate about it, man. It's the best body of work I've put together thus far. I think it's just the best representation of who I am as a person and as an artist. And if there's not a song on there for you, then there's something wrong with you. I tell you all the time, if you can't find a song on there that you like, you're dead inside a little bit.
Those are bold words. Those are
It,
bold words, though.
because country music has evolved in such a way. Um, there's everyone has a lane, right? Everybody in country music has a lane, and I feel like I'm the only one that just said to hell with it, right? With all those boxes, I don't, just because I'm the Mexican guy doesn't mean I have to have all the Latin stuff, right. And I grew up in the '90s, man. I love '90s country. Tracy Lawrence is probably one of my biggest influences, man. So I love a good sad heartbreak song, right? I love the chicken picking, I love the pedal steel, just as much as I love the trumpets. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of everything, man. And so when people try to ask me, what is your sound? What is your music? What does Frank Ray sound like? I'm like, shit, well, listen to this album. And that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm most excited for. Because if you go see a show, we'll do everything from Country Look Good on You to Streetlights, and we'll mash it up with Despacito, and then we'll do Tequila Mockingbird, mash it up with a little Redbone, Come and Get Your Love. You know what I mean? Like, we do a little bit of everything. So people are just always blown away, and that's something I pride myself in, that we put on a great show. We have an eclectic style of music, and there's something for everybody in the crowd. Whether you love the traditional sounding stuff, we got a song called Back Before My Time that's just really rockin' country, chicken picking, no bullshit, man. It's great, you know? But if you want some more of the Latin vibe, then we got Streetlights, and we got another song called Wasting Your Words, and just, you can get that. You can get something. So there's something in the realm of country in all of its evolution for everybody in that record, and that's what I'm most excited about.
I love that, and I can second that the show is great, and it's a fun time, and I guess, you know, what else can folks expect from you here in the rest of 2023?
We're finishing up our tour with Old Dominion in the beginning of July, so we've been on tour with them since January, and that's been really, really cool, man. We've been fortunate enough to be direct support for them. So if people are curious, you know, to catch a show, I mean, first off, it's incredible. Graylin James kicks it off. Cassie Ashton is incredible. She goes up next, and then I go up, and I feel like our show has changed a lot since you saw us with Elvie. It's awesome, man. Like, the production's huge. It just seems like there's a little more fluidity to it. And then Old Dominion just puts on a masterclass of how to put on a show. It's really, really awesome. So if people are interested in that, I strongly suggest that they come check out a show. Obviously, festival season is among us, so in between all that, we'll be doing a bunch of festivals. You know, we got Country Thunder, we got Country Jam, we got Rogue Music Fest. MRL's putting on a thing over at I can't remember what it is, but I mean, all our stuff is up on my website at Frank Ray Music. They can check out upcoming shows. You know, of course, we got the new single out on country radio. We got the album hopefully dropping on later this summer. I started an organization for first responders called Fray that we've been working pretty tirelessly on to make sure that first responders have the resources to have the best mental wellness resources available to them. I mean, there's just so many things that we have going on that it's hard to keep up, man. You know, so just touring, new music.
And a 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old, and a 2-month-old. Right?
Again, I'm excited. The next Old Dominion thing, the next Old Dominion stop is in Key West, and so I bought my family flights for that, and so they're coming out. It's 3 nights that we're doing over there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm just looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be really cool.
Well, and I'm guessing to complete the whole story, you know, with Tequila Mockingbird and Old Dominion, I'm guessing that's how it all came full circle to you being on tour with them.
I told Trevor that story. I told him how I got my record deal and how at least I got on the radar here in Nashville. And he's like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me, man." I was just like, "No, straight up. This is it." He's like, "I had no idea." And I said, "Dude, real talk." I said, "To you, you just wrote a song. Like, to me, you wrote the song, you know?" And I, to this day, never grow tired of playing Tequila Mockingbird. There's some other songs that I've written that I'm just like, they kind of fall out of fashion with me. that song has never been one of them. I love playing it. It never gets old for me. It's great, dude, and it's a crowd favorite. So yeah, that song did worlds for me, man. And then it was so funny. He texted me. He texted me the following day after I told him that story. He's like, "Holy crap, dude! I just found this," and it was a work tape of when they were first coming up with it. So it's just so interesting to see. Like, and I know it as a writer myself, and you're just kind of babbling melodies and stringing words that don't make sense together, and just trying to find the song. And then eventually they found it, and it was great, man. It was to my benefit.
Well, it's an amazing journey. Frank, you've got some great music, and folks, like I said, I highly recommend if you haven't, check them out. Go to a show; it's worth it. And Frank, this is
absolutely, man. I
Thanks
appreciate you taking the time and just let me rant. It was a nice walk down memory lane, just putting all this thing together and over some good liquor, man.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.